will just start. I will start quickly by myself. My name is René van Baardewijk. I am based in Barcelona, Spain, and I'm one of the organizers of the Barcelona think tank. And give the word to Dr. Turki Al Rashid. He's the CEO of Golden Grass, and he's going to do the presentation today on food security. So, Turki, please.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good whatever time you're in. Thank you for joining us. My topic is food security. Little background about myself. I am 10 months a year, a Saudi businessman involved in food security and agriculture. 2 months a year, I am an academic, which I go teach at the University of Arizona. Let me go on to my PowerPoint presentation. You could post your questions and just tell me what it is, and we'll go through it. I'll try to go as quickly as possible so I could leave a lot of room for you guys to ask your questions. Food security, Saudi Arabia, and the rest of the GCC. If you look at the pictures in here, is I tried really to break it down into the sustainability triple bottom line, which is the triple P: profit, people, and planet. So every time I talk, I always will look at it from the triple bottom line. Okay, here is my message to the decision maker that food security, strengthening countries, national security, sustainable agriculture development is one of the best tools to enhance security, alleviate poverty, and promote economic growth. I'm a very strong believer that is on the basic need of the human being requirement. For the business people, that is agriculture, social agriculture, or industrial agriculture. It could be very profitable, and it could be there is a lot of social return on it. For the academia, that is the purpose of this talk, is to provide food for thought for the broader discussion, which is greater sustainable agriculture development and the geopolitical intersect. Well, just so we know what are we talking about here, food security is not about food. It is about security. Chronic hunger threaten individual government and societies and border. Achieving food security need policy, investment, reform on a multiple dimension. Food security is the political aspect of agriculture development. Central government must not give all the priority to the urban area, but to balance it between rural developments and the urban. There is an urgent need to monitor the extent, nature of the impact of the international agriculture investment and catalog the best practice. We could talk a lot about the investment, and because I am personally investor and I get involved with a lot of the agriculture, what law are we talking about it in case if there is a dispute? Well, my introduction here, food production has been challenging for Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC for years due to a limited arable land, lack of fresh water. So water is the main issues for us. The increase of food demand and the lower production rate has created difficulties, make it difficult for Saudi Arabia. And we have started to heavily depend on the foreigners' market. This brings the changes in the nutrition food demand, choices, also direct effect on the public debts and food import bill. So we are highly exposed for the food securities. there is over 20 or 25 definition of food securities. So this is the definition that I always look at it. It is available all the time, that all person have mean of access for adequate in terms of quality, variety, and it's acceptable to the culture. That's the definition I am comfortable with. Unfortunately, the world have forgotten about how important is food. People are start to believe that food is easy, just go to the supermarket and get it. So the supply chain, the food producer are really being forgotten, and unfortunately, the agriculture market is being operating now at full capacity. So while other industry operating at much less operating. Agriculture and food security have the core of the international agenda as the G8 called it last year. Well, this is here just a quick numbering for people to look at it. There is Saudi Arabia ranked the 30th on the food security. The highest is Singapore, and the lowest is Venezuela. Trend in food security in Saudi Arabia. To attain securities in Saudi Arabia, we have taken different measures. In 1980 to 1990, Saudi Arabia have moved very heavily in agriculture, and the main reason for that, it was a political threat. Some of you recall, that is the Carter administration have banned the export of wheat to the Russian after they invaded Afghanistan. And then President Reagan came, and it was a famous song, a bushel of wheat for a barrel of oil. And this is one of the main reasons that Saudi Arabia have launched a massive food security program. But in the 90s, the cost of that became very big because of the water. And then we start to reduce our demand on growing food locally. 2007, 2008 came. It shows how vulnerable are we for the food. So the Saudi government have launched an agriculture investment abroad with a criteria that we could invest in different countries, and the Saudi government will provide finance. Then the water issue became very big. They start to stop growing wheat. As of 2016, no more, you cannot grow wheat, and the government will not buy it. And they ban growing alfalfa. So as of November last year, all the agriculture company have stopped growing. Golden Grass is one of the largest agriculture companies in Saudi Arabia. We have irrigated farm, about 22 million square meter. They gave me a permit for only 2,000 meter to grow alfalfa. Of course, that's not feasible at all. So this is here the consumption, the GCC food consumption. As you could see, the Saudi Arabia food consumption is forecasted to reach 39.0 million metric ton. It will go up to 33, and the spending is going higher and higher. The consumption is going up. So this growth is likely to be driven and increased by two things: by the population growth, and by people are, bless you, and people are moving into the city. So 88% of Saudi now, they live in three cities: Riyadh, Dammam, and Jeddah. So the rural area is really shrinking very much. Food import, money-wise, in 2020 is about $35 billion, and they're expecting it to go up definitely not down. So we're going to do a SWOT analysis. We will do the SWOT analysis for the Saudi food securities, the strength, weakness, threat, opportunity. Well, we'll illustrate the strength of Saudi Arabia. They have the capitals, and they could invest abroad, and they could import their main strategic crop, which is, as you could see, wheat, forage, rice, sugar, corn, for their reserve. So they'll provide a financial support to the Saudi investor who will invest outside of Saudi Arabia. This is the weakness. So number one and number two and number three is water, water, water. But that is one issue. The other issue is the legal challenges facing Saudi agriculture investor together with other investors. What law do we use? Do we use the domestic law, or do you use the international investment contract, or do you use the international investment agreement? We have to define what law do we go by for this investment, because the volatility of food prices and also increase of population, migration from rural urban area affect the qualities of the food. The opportunity, we believe in social agriculture. Social agriculture is mainly for the small stakeholders. It will have a multi-dimension purposes to develop the rural area. And Saudi Arabia have signed an agreement with the IFAD that they will concentrate on social agriculture. Agriculture investment abroad will achieve a multi-dimension benefit for Saudi Arabia. One of them is the soft power for Saudi Arabia. We should improve our storage facilities, and that is part of the Saudi Vision 2030. Water management, we should go by crops per drops. Urban farming, as we could see it now with the corona, all the city are closing up. So we need some kind of urban farming. I mean by urban farming, like vertical farming, hydroponic, and so on. Soil improvement technique, seawater harvesting, groundwater management, and go with the state-of-the-art technology to achieve our goals. The threat, reliance on food import, we are about 85% relying on other countries. Our rainfall is about 70 millimeters per year. The food prices fluctuation, the political instabilities in the hosted countries, and restriction on export in time of crisis or eruptions of the food supply chain. Here is my summarizing the SWOT analysis. We should rely on market derivative, rely on local producer, partnership with Saudi investor, agriculture abroad, partnership with international producer, and be a major stakeholders with the major food companies. These will give Saudi Arabia a broadening their food supply chain. And that's all within the Saudi Vision 2030. Here is my recommendation. One of the challenges that I am campaigning is the implementation of social agriculture. It provides innovation to the farmer in the villages at a relatively low and moderate cost, which significantly improve their livelihood quality. Through social agriculture, it's an effective tools to enhance food security, alleviate poverty, and promote economic growth. through improving people's standards of living. The aim is the short terms, which is agriculture changes and we do it in Saudi Arabia and other small villages in other GCC. The medium terms is to introduce the sustainable agriculture to improve the life of the others and implemented it for other countries. And Saudi Arabia, that when we give loans or donation, we should give it as part of it is like to one of these programs for agriculture. The long term is to incorporate the Saudi Sustainable Social Agriculture Program to other countries. For example, Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, for the last many decades, we always give money to the leaders, we give money to the top leaders of the government, but we don't give money to the international organization that they could do programs, and that will go to the small scale peoples like in Lebanon or in Ethiopia or any of the other country. Rather than you give billions of dollars to the leadership, we should go with, I believe in what they call it, the helix triangle, which is academia, business people, and government, the three cooperations that they will do projects in other countries, financed by the Saudi government and the private sectors. The way forward. In light of Saudi vision to diversify the economy to become non-oil dependent on the kingdom is making significant agriculture investment. The government is investing in a newer technology and techniques, collaborations with various institutions to strengthen the food securities, the need to adopt urban farming in view of the current world crisis, and these are the stuff that we can do as a way forward. Thank you very much. For more details about the subject is my book, Agriculture Development Strategies, The Saudi Experience. That's available in all the international outlet like Amazon and so on. Another book that is I co-author with it is Public Governance and Strategic Management Capability, Public Governance in the Gulf State. I look at all these books, I look at it with the triple bottom line of sustainability. If you would need more information about myself, you could go to www.tfrashid.org.
Thank you very much for the presentation, first event. That was very interesting. Okay, Judy, I see you're, okay, please, hold on. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it's Dr. Uda here. My question is Dr. Rashid, I think in your second or third slide, you mentioned something that says that unfortunately, agriculture is now operating at full capacity. I could do with some more clarification how you came to that conclusion.
No, it's the other way around. Agriculture is operating at full capacity. Other industry is not operating at full capacity.
Okay, so I think it's just the confusion in the wording then. And the other bit as well is how much of an emphasis is the GCC and Saudi placing on dietary needs and food preferences in relation to food security?
Well, because, as I said, moving people are from the rural to urban, so the change of diet, that's make a more pressures on the not only the quantity of the food, but also the qualities of the food. So the more you move in urban, from rural to urban, then you move on with a different kind of food and more food. And that's the change which is we are facing from India and facing also from China. Don't forget the last 10 years, more than 800 million Chinese went from extreme poverties into out of the extreme poverty. So their food have changed, their demand have changed. I hope I answered your question.
Dr. Turki, please, can you elaborate a little bit about the investments, Saudi investments in Africa, and how is it, you know, a win-win type, or is it the farms that have been bought by Saudi Arabia? Do they benefit mostly Saudi Arabia or the government of, say, Ethiopia, or the population at large, or what kind of technologies you are introducing to those states in Africa?
The investment in Africa, bottom line, really, African country, they don't want investment. They really, no matter what they tell you, that is, we do want investment, they really don't want investment. I've been trying to invest in Sudan for the last 30 years, and I couldn't, because what they want to do, they want to give you a long-term lease, and this way they could play with you all the time, and anytime they like it, they will move you from one land to another land. The Egyptian government, they really don't want you to invest. They want you to put your money, they will milk you down to the last drop, and then at the end of the day, you end up losing. You mentioned Ethiopia, for example. Ethiopia, they leased us a lot of land. A lot of my friends, over 400 Saudi investors that we have invested in Ethiopia. And we do have a lot of Ethiopian that they come illegally to Saudi Arabia and through Yemen. So when we deported those Ethiopian 2 years ago, all of a sudden they made some cases against nearly 400 Saudi agriculture investment. A lot of them put in jail for drugs, for prostitutions, for all kinds of reasons, and they confiscated their land. This is one of the reasons that I'm saying is like food is the best tools to grab power. Rulers of the country, they do not want to lose that power. The US make sure that is they exported wheat and you don't grow your own wheat. I remember one of the president of an African country, he said, if I want a 1 million euro for food storage, I will not get it. But if I want a 600 million euro for a weapon, I could get finance for that. So agriculture is politics. Food is politics to grab that power. Egypt, for example, with 80 million people, they hardly don't have any storage facilities because the US government or whoever supplier, they supply that control, the government supply that control, and they suppress people by food.
Okay. All right. Next question.
Hi, John. Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I have two questions. One is, can you define what you mean by social agriculture? Is that only in Saudi that there's an investment initiative, or is it around the world? My second question is, we are working on a very large agricultural project in Australia, and I'd be interested to know what you would advise, how to talk to the right investors and pick the right investors in Saudi for something like this. It's a very large project.
Social agriculture, I think it was implemented very successfully in Italy and in France. It's a sustainable agriculture development for the small stakeholders. That is, you could go with the small stakeholders who grow grapes, grow whatever vegetables. It is being famous for on that village or in that area. Like for example, in Yemen, we go with the coffee and the other crops, which has been famous for that place. Basically it's a social program, but rather than you go like I think you're all familiar with, like Muhammad Yunus, on the microcredit. But rather than to give a microcredit and give him credit for the people to sell, it is a microcredit for the farmer to grow. So you grow something, you involve the peoples on it, and it's linked by the public health safety, by improving the qualities of the women and the children, and at the same time keeping the rural development. For Australia, there is I know there is a lot of my friends already investing very heavily in Australia. It's a very favorable country, and it's large. It's not like other countries. When you invest on it, you will get a lot of negative feedback, including the US.
So it's more open.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a question. Dr. Al-Rashid, can you detail for us your investments and or Saudi Arabia's investment along the supply chain in agriculture, specifically with regard to agro-processing and agricultural technologies? So my question was about your investments personally and Saudi Arabia's investment in general, especially with regard to the public investment fund in agro-processing abroad, specifically in Africa. You've talked about the difficulties you had, but whether in Africa or abroad, what is your strategy with regard to agro-processing and agricultural technologies, which you've talked about? Could you detail those for us, please?
Okay, on your question, if I could understand it, it's a three area. Area number one, it's which project that has been invested by Saudi Arabia. There is, top of my head, there is about 10, and I could share it with you guys on the group, the list of the projects. The criteria, there is, I think, 7 or 9 criteria to invest. Number one, it's a favorable country to Saudi Arabia. It has abundant, water, and it has a lot of potentialities for the food supply. But don't forget, guys, agriculture is a highly political subject. We have invested in Arizona, Pittsburgh. What is it? Pittsburgh, Salome. Professor Bravo, is it Pittsburgh or it's just outside of Phoenix, next between Arizona and California?
It's in Pinal County.
Okay, we have invested there almost $150 million, and if it was one of those guys like from New York, they will consider them as the heroes. But because we were Saudis, we have invested there. If you Google it, you will see hundreds of articles that the Saudi are stealing our water. We have developed the whole area, state-of-the-art technologies on growing alfalfa, and raise the bar so highly that we take the forage from Arizona, we take it back to Saudi Arabia. It takes 21 days from farm to farm. But we had so much negativities. And you could Google it and you will see hundreds of articles against Saudi Arabia because we are stealing the water. What they didn't realize is when we harvested alfalfa, we let it in the ground to dry so it will evaporate, so all the water go back again. But the Saudi are stealing our money. When we want to invest in Africa, they don't call us investor, they call it land grabber. So it's a very political issues here.
Yeah.
And with regard to technology, agricultural technologies, is it the same issues, or
No.
has that been an area of focus?
Saudi Arabia is using the state-of-the-art technologies on agriculture. I don't know whether you are familiar with that or not, but the second largest user of technologies in the world after military is agriculture. We use technology to the highest level for the following reason, because we, for example, I give you 1 million or 80 hectares. We only use about 5 or 7 guys to run that pivot. So we don't use a lot of labor. So industrial agriculture, it's a very competitive business. It's a state-of-the-art technology. Social agriculture is a completely different area.
Okay, I see. Raja, I see as a question. Please go ahead, Raja. Sega.
Yeah, Mr. Rashid,
Yes.
I'm from Malaysia. Okay, so what other country you are interested to invest or to the agriculture? You are in your mind any other country you are in the mind to invest? Thank you.
Are you talking about in mind or mining?
Anyway.
I guess you're from Indonesia. I think
Malaysia.
I think some of my friends are investing in the palm oil in Malaysia.
Okay.
And every country has its own. It has its own positive. For example, Vietnam on the white rice. Pakistan and India were interested in the yellow rice, and all the yellow rice come from the Punjab. But unfortunately, these countries, they want the Saudis to invest on their heavy infrastructure because they have neglected their agriculture infrastructures for many, many years.
Did you see that, Toki?
What?
She typed a question, Rachel. Has Saudi Arabia announced any policy action in response to the pressure on food security due to COVID-19? If so, could you please explain those?
Well, they just announced yesterday, based on the request of Kuwait, that they will do a collective measures that is for they will go for food security for all the GCC. It was just announced yesterday based on the Kuwaiti request.
What is the Kuwaiti request?
It's food security not only for every GCC country separately, but they will look at the requirement of the GCC collectively.
I got a question, Rene.
Sure.
Go ahead. If somebody has a question, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Francisco.
Okay. So what is the future now after this event? How is Saudi Arabia in particular and overall in general the situation with the food industry? How it sees it?
What is it? The tourist industry?
No, the food industry. I mean the supply of food now after COVID.
Well, I honestly think we are in a completely new ground. A few months ago, we thought we are controlling the whole world, you know. We are controlling our destiny. We're talking about genetic. We're going to be living for 200 years, and we're all powerful and secure. And all of a sudden, with a little small things, you know, you cannot even see it. It have brought the whole earth, the whole 1 billion people in less than 3 weeks. They are all in their house. I think there is a major change on all that aspect. Food security, Saudi Arabia should start to, as I said, depend on the market derivative. They should support their local supplier from local producer, depending on crops per drops. Number 3 is go as a partnership with the major food supplier, and then be a stakeholders with all the major companies, buy a major stake with them, so you are securing your food. There is a multi-dimension. You cannot just say, we will depend on this area and that's it. It has to be different area.
Anybody else has a question in regular?
I do.
Yes?
I do. Can I have a quick one to
Yeah, please.
Dr. Turki? I would be interested in your telling us a little bit about the difference between what China does in Africa and what you do. Do they have a different strategy regarding, the acquisition or the presence on the of the lands in Africa?
Very simple. Professor Yahya is, you need muscle, you need power. And China, when they make a deal in Sudan or any of the African countries, they have the political muscles to support them. While I am a Saudi, I go invest, nearly 400 Saudis have invested billions of dollars in Ethiopia. Within a few days, they all wrapped them up and put them in jail and put them with all kinds of lawsuits. Now, if there were other nationalities, they would not be treated like that, because that's one of the reasons I said we must have a clear law for agriculture investment. But at the end of the day, you need the political muscle to support your investors. I hope I answered your questions, Dr. Yahya.
I have a question, a delicate question for you, Dr. Rashid. What's the reason that the Saudis, as you say, are in particular running into roadblocks and headwinds and lawsuits when they invest into agriculture? Why is it happening? And what can be done about it?
Well, as I said, John, is agriculture is politics. And as I give the examples of Arizona, if we were from New York or somewhere else, we will be a hero because we have uplifted the whole county. But it's so easy to trash people and say, well, they are stealing our water. So it's either you have a teeth, which is you have a superpower behind you that could support you. It's not only Saudi Arabia. If you look at the investment in Madagascar, it was made by the Korean. The Korean didn't have enough teeth, so they pulled them out. One of my friends invested in Egypt, in Toshka. It was almost 100,000 hectares, and they blocked him, and they took it away back from them, the Egyptian governments. So it's either you have a very clear law to support you, and what kind of a law, or you must have a superpower behind you.
And did I hear you say in my earlier question that the relationship or the political environment between Australia and Saudi is okay?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yes. And it's a stable market. It's a stable market, a lot of land, plenty of water, no restriction. So yes, but Australia have only two things really, wheat and meat.
All right, I see a question from Nathaniel Ferguson.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Rashid. My question is in relation to the export restrictions that you mentioned earlier. Obviously, these were a problem that was coming up during the food price spikes of the past decade plus, but those were limited to a specific time. Whereas with coronavirus, this is something that could be, we could be facing, Romania just announced theirs, and it could be bigger countries after that. We could be experiencing this periodically over, I don't know how long, because we don't have a specific end game for the virus. Obviously, for Saudi Arabia, these direct investments into countries is a strategy well suited for this challenge. However, what about countries that don't have the ability to have, large sovereign wealth funds that can fund this kind of agro investments abroad, and are also relying on imports from countries like maybe Ukraine or Russia? What would be a suitable strategy for these countries?
Well, number one, to answer your question, this is not only a decade ago. It's only now China. I think they just announced they have only a food supply for the next 15 days. So food is, anytime there is a problem, will be rising, whether it is a breakdown of disease or any natural crisis. For a poor country, Malawi is a food beggar, and they have start to do their local farming, and they actually went from a food beggar into a food exporters. So it's easy to do your own supply as much as you can. You can do your own supply, and you don't depend very heavily only on exports. Now, for the poor people, you said it's a major crisis, but they have to do it. They have to do it within their own resource. Malawi have used the donation they donate them good quality seed and good quality fertilizer, and they did a good work. But I have talked to a lot of I've talked to the president of Malawi when I was in Singapore, when I was in Sri Lanka during the leader Shogam, which is the what is it, Rani? The Commonwealth. They have to give ownership to the land, and he promised to give 14,000 landholders, to give them 5 hectares so they could invest in their land. And I think it's working now.
Also, you mentioned earlier Egypt having trouble getting the financing for adding storage capacity, even though they're the largest importer of grains in the world. So my follow-up question to that would be, for countries that have to import food, they have no way of accessing a key currency like dollars or euros, and also do not print a key currency like dollars or euros. Are there possibilities, for example, for regional monetary funds, like the Banco del Sur comes to mind, or something like after the East Asian crisis, how the countries of East Asia were able to engage in macroeconomic cooperation? Like, what kind of, how can these poor countries gain leverage in the financial system?
Well, if you in my PowerPoint, I have mentioned that we want the Saudi government and the GCC to incorporate their donation through a social program with the Helix Triangle, which is the academia, the private sector, and the public sectors. And we could do projects, whether it is in Lebanon, or whether we could do it in Sudan or Egypt or any of these countries. And for me, that's really what I'm promoting. That's what I've been writing, and that's what I've been pressuring all the decision makers on rebuilding. Agriculture, social agriculture, is one of the key projects to be invested in by the Saudi on these countries.
I would say thank you very much for, first of all, Turkey for having this presentation, the Barcelona think tank members. So I start with Francisco. If you have to put your mic on in order to talk.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, we can hear you, Professor.
Okay.
This is Francisco Carrada. I'm a professor at Arizona State University and very good friend of Turkey and Rene for many years. And I appreciate this. I'm sorry I was late, but I'm glad at least I had a chance to see part of the conversation. And I hope, Rene, this is a great first event. Thank you very much. I think, thank you, Turkey. I think we will start doing all these kinds of activities in the future for other people to make presentations. So I'm very glad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Actually, it's our second event. We had an event 2 weeks ago from Hong Kong, so this is the second one. But definitely the quality of this presentation was excellent again. Let me just go quickly. Okay, I see Dr. Jones Edebor from Austria. Can you just quickly present yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. We cannot see you. We can hear you.
Unfortunately, my camera isn't working. I just,
no problem.
Next time, I'm sure that's going to be fixed.
Okay.
I came in very late, so I missed the presentation. And but I'm glad to at least hear a few of the answers and the questions. I'm a consultant. I live in Austria, Vienna. And I hope this kind of meetings, like the professor just said, will be done more often in the future.
Okay.
So I think it was beautiful. Thank you, Rene.
Okay, thank you, Jones. Okay, and last I see Charles Chimeke from Nigeria. You have to put on your mic if you want to talk. Charles?
My name is Charles from Abuja.
Okay.
I'm very pleased to join you for the first time on this program. And I'm really pleased with the way you organize the whole thing. And really pleased. I listened to the last part of what Chucky was saying. It looks quite interesting, but unfortunately I joined very late. And I hope I will be more earlier next time. So I'd like to thank everybody for these wonderful conversations. And I'd like to thank you especially, Rene, for organizing that. You're doing a great work. I'm very pleased with what you're doing. We're pleased to have you. I'm sure a lot goes into this, planning, organizing, getting everybody. So I will pray that you continue to be strengthened in these, everything you're doing. I love everybody who participated. I don't know much of them anyway, but at least I'm happy to have joined in that wonderful conversation that took place a little bit closer to the end, but I think most of it must have been discussed at the early stage. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have everyone. If I have left anyone out, please raise your hand or please talk now. Otherwise, we're gonna close the session.
Omar, I think he didn't introduce himself.
Oh, hold on, sorry, I forget. Yes, please go ahead. Omar.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Omar.
Omar Boulam,
Yeah.
I'm from Niger. And I was really interested into this food security conference because myself in my country, we have, at least the government have initiated a program called 3N, the Niger people feed Niger people, let's say.
Okay, thank you very much, Omar. Okay.
I just have a quick question if there's time left. That's all right.
One last question, very, very quick.
It's for Dr. Al-Rashid. First of all, thank you for putting this on. It's very interesting. But the question is, in your presentation, you talked about transitioning to more social agriculture, similar to what there is in France and Italy. And you also talked about how technology is, the second largest technology user is industrial agriculture. So I think a transition to social agriculture would see a lot more human labor inputs and a lot less technological inputs. And I wondered what potential pushbacks you might expect from a transition like that.
John, are you from the AUB? You said you are based in Lebanon?
Yes.
Okay. I am currently an advisor to the College of Agriculture, the Sustainability Department. And what we are trying to do, we're trying to get the Saudi government to finance all the projects on the villages. Lebanon, there is about 1,100 villages, and we're taking that. What we're really trying to do with the Saudi University, together with the AUB and public and the private sector, to finance projects in Lebanon on the villages. And the budget, it's about, the initial budget is $30 million, which is about, it's going to be about $300,000 per villages. And this is what I'm really working on. And that's why I have taken the job as an advisor to the College of Agriculture, the AUB, to promote social agriculture villages in Lebanon. We will use that project. When it's successful, we will convert it into Syria, which is rebuilding Syria after the war, and use it also in Yemen. And the AUB have a lot of experience on that. Omar, just as a quick note, in 2013, I met with the Vice President of Nigeria, and he was representing Nigeria in Shogom in Sri Lanka, the Commonwealth, and I had a big debate publicly with him.
Do you mean Nigeria or Niger?
Nigeria. Are you from Niger or
Nigeria? Yes.
I'm from Nigeria. He's from Niger, so I'm wondering. I thought you'd be facing it. You'll be telling me instead of him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm in Nigeria. He's in Niger.
Yeah, it's confusing sometimes. In Nigeria, speaking Omar and Nigeria.
My good friend Saud Ad-Dail, he was the ambassador in the Niger, and he died about a year ago. He was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
So sorry, Charles, you're from Nigeria.
Yes.
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 Jones Edobo is also from Nigeria, by the way.
So the Vice President have promised me he will adopt in front of 52 Prime Minister, President, he will adopt rural developments in the villages, and he will appoint a special person,
advisor,
that a special advisor, that he will have allocated time for him for a project $1 million and less, only for the rural area. I don't know whether he carried that promise or not.
We are not aware of that at this present time. Is there any way you want us to open the discussion or link up with him on that? You have his contact?
No, I haven't met with him since 2013. So.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. That's when he was presenting Nigeria in the Commonwealth, and he promised me in front of 52 President, Vice President, and the audience was over 1,000, I think 300 person was there. So it was as public as you could get. And he promised $1 million project and a special envoy to the rural area.
But I think you are talking of the former vice president, because
he was a short, very smart, intelligent. I think his name is Qasim Hassan or Hassan something Hassan.
Okay, never mind. The current one is not the one. He came into office in 2015.
Yeah.
So apparently you are referring to the previous vice president.
I will search his name. I will pass it on the group. I will, Ronnie, find me his name and send me his picture.
But the previous president, I don't think he's Hassan. I think he's.
Wasn't. But never mind.
I think it's.
I'll find him. Let's not waste time on it. I'll find it and I'll send it to you guys. Renee, are we finished with the meeting?
I think we are, but of course, at least I think for most of us, no. I thank you very much, Turkey. That was wonderful for us to learn more about food security, and especially for the GCC region, and all the connections you have, especially investing in other countries from Arizona to Africa. And it's also good for many of the members that they can see all the faces of the different members of the think tank. And this is the second meeting we had on Zoom, and especially for a lot of the people like myself here in Spain who are locked, it is a great way of communicating. Hopefully we will be able to see each other face to face again soon. As you know, as a BTT, we're trying to organize a meeting in September in Barcelona, and looking at the situation, hopefully in a couple of months we can still go ahead with that. There will be a new presentation on Zoom in probably in about 2 weeks. We have a few candidates. If you are interested in one day doing a presentation on one of the topics that is near to your heart or near to your region, please contact me and we discuss how we can best do it. And for that, I would say thank you very much, everybody, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you,
much,
Rene.
Rene.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
everybody.
much.
Bye, ma salama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Masalama.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.